Hi, I'm Robyn Hartwig, and I am a volunteer leader and the part-time pastor organizer with EcoFaith Recovery. Many people have been asking me lately if they could learn more about EcoFaith Recovery and are interested in possibly getting more involved. I am imagining that this increased level of interest is in response to the news of the day and the fact that so many people are feeling angry, overwhelmed, afraid, despairing, sad, confused, just trying to figure out what's happening and what they could do about it. I'm also excited to see that many people are also feeling energized to get involved and make a difference, realizing that the stakes are really high right now and that we need everybody to be engaged and to be doing what they are called to do or what they can do. If learning a little more about EcoFaith Recovery would be helpful to you, I'm more than happy to share a little bit. I actually wish I could just stop by and have a conversation, gather with you in your living room or at your kitchen table, share a cup of tea. I brought mine with me, and if you need to go get yours, you can just hit the pause button, and I promise I'll wait right here. I won't go anywhere. EcoFaith Recovery is a volunteer leadership development effort which has arisen since about 2009 at the confluence of the Columbia and Willamette Rivers, also known as the metropolitan Portland, Oregon area. It's been expanding out into other parts of the Pacific Northwest and even a little bit further out across the country from there. EcoFaith Recovery's mission is basically threefold: to identify existing and emerging leaders, to develop our leadership potential together by use of EcoFaith's practices for awakening leadership, and to lift one another up, to support our faith communities in taking courageous public action for the recovery of human life and the healing of God's creation. As I mentioned, the heart of EcoFaith Recovery is the practices for awakening leadership. The practices for awakening leadership have emerged among our volunteer leadership network over the course of these years that we've been coming together, as we have asked ourselves, what is it that brings us out of isolation and denial and overwhelm into life-giving, spiritually grounded communities of relational possibility? We know we can't leverage the level of money that powered interests in our world are able to leverage, but we do have spiritual power and we have relational power, and we should never, ever underestimate how powerful that can be in truly making a difference. The practices for awakening leadership are not rocket science. They're pretty simple, actually. They're the roots that ground our life together and the roots that need to be strong in order for our life and our expression of our lives to be strong in the world. They include spiritual grounding, relational practices, telling our stories, rhythms of engagement, mentoring, and conscious leadership development. You can read more about them in this little booklet of EcoFaith Recovery that is available at the website www.ecofaithrecovery.org. Now, the other thing about these practices, these 6 practices, is that each one of them has 4 dimensions, moving from the personal expression of that practice to the interpersonal, to the community, and to the public dimension of that practice. And we have recognized how important it is for us to engage in these practices at every one of those dimensions. That's the only way that real cultural transformation is going to happen. And it's the only way that our recovery is truly facilitated in a way that makes a difference in the larger world. EcoFaith Recovery, in has a vision for the coming year that is also super exciting to me. And this has been created by our volunteer leaders as they have discerned together what needs to happen for these practices to have an even bigger impact in the larger world. This visual is also available at the website, but as I mentioned, it all starts with the practices for awakening leadership. And we recognize that these practices are going to be even more powerful as we live them out when we have more examples and modeling as to how we can use them in our own faith communities. And the easiest way for that to happen is for us to simply share the ways we are using the practices for awakening leadership through the website. Can you imagine getting ready to go to a gathering where you would like to invite others to engage the practices for awakening leadership and going to the EcoFaith website and seeing there dozens and dozens of examples of how to use each of these practices, videos, print resources that we share with one another in order to bolster our engagement with these practices so that we can all be supporting one another in taking courageous public action for the recovery of human life and the healing of God's creation. Another way that we know that we can really support one another in our engagement with these practices is through a new model called the EcoFaith Institute. This was piloted for us by one of EcoFaith Recovery's former interns who's become a leader in EcoFaith Recovery. We piloted it last week. It met with amazing reviews and a sense from everybody who participated that we need to take this institute model even further and engage more people in the practices through this weekend deep dive together. People coming together to learn the practices and engage them over a weekend so that they can take them back to their faith communities and other communities to work for positive and significant change. Next, we're going to engage another 5 young adult interns in 5 projects where they creatively use the practices in their communities in ways we haven't even begun to imagine yet. This will bring the total number of interns that EcoFaith Recovery has sponsored up to 30 high school and young adult interns who now have the practices for awakening leadership as a resource to sustain them over the course of their lifetime. We will train 40 leaders to engage at least 10 congregations in a just energy transition initiative and potentially another public project using these practices for awakening leadership. We are partnering with a number of other organizations across Portland to provide a model for sustainable and just energy transition for the rest of the country. This model will be at the intersection of sustainable energy, justice for communities of color, and energy retrofits for the housing of low-income communities. Next, we want to inspire 120 people from 20 congregations or more to lead public eco-reformation projects. As many of you may know, 2017 marks the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. But what good is it to simply celebrate what happened 500 years ago if we are not taking responsibility for the ways God is calling us to reform not merely faith, but also our larger human culture in our time? A number of Lutheran theologians, pastors, and lay people, as well as some folks from other denominations, have proposed that 2017 must be, it simply must be the year of the Eco-Reformation. And the more congregations that we can get engaged in sponsoring one or more public Eco-Reformation projects, the bigger the impact this will have in helping our faith communities, our faith traditions, and our larger society take seriously the call to eco-reformation that is before us right now. Please send us the project that your faith community will be engaging in as we organize communities throughout the Pacific Northwest to participate in this national effort that is being spearheaded by Lutherans Restoring Creation. We also intend to continue our support of over 200 leaders in their faith-inspired relational leadership efforts as a means of seeding the broader cultural transformation that is needed for our time. If this vision and this recovery approach makes sense to you, or if you'd like to just give it a try, we hope you will join us. Like I mentioned, it's as simple as downloading some of the resources from the EcoFaith Recovery website and gathering a small group from your community to engage in these practices together. You don't have to know where it's going to lead you. You don't even have to have an idea of some public project that you'd like to take on. Our experience has shown that when we come together around these practices and commit to engage them at every level of our lives and to support one another in doing that, that God leads and shows us the way from there. The rest becomes clear when we rely on God and we turn to one another as community. Left to our own, most of us are going to feel too isolated and overwhelmed by the powerful forces that exist in our world. But when we rekindle that hope and imagination of our faith tradition, and when we're reminded of the power of relational community, suddenly new creativity, new inspiration, new possibilities emerge. It doesn't mean it's always easy. Sometimes it's challenging. But we have also been finding that we are energized and inspired, and that our lives suddenly feel like they have more meaning than ever before. We know why we're alive. We know why we are here for such a time as this. As you engage with others in these practices for awakening leadership, we really hope that you will be inspired to become part of the sustaining circle that makes all of this possible. Yes, EcoFaith Recovery is entirely volunteer leader run, and our volunteer leaders need a communication infrastructure, a website support process, video conferencing tools that we're going to have to expand in the future, and a very small part-time staff. Our 3 staff members work anywhere from 7 to 15 hours a week. We could use so much more in order to provide the kind of support that our volunteer leaders need, and just even our 5 interns need to take these practices for awakening leadership to new places and to engage them in new ways. It's super easy to just sign up to become a monthly sustaining contributor. We have folks who are giving anywhere from $5 a month to $150 a month right now. And we know it's going to be essential that we organize not only our people and our time, but our financial resources as well, in order to step up and step in to the level of engagement and creativity that a time like this requires of all of us. If there's other ways that you'd like to be engaged, or other creative ideas you have for using the practices for awakening leadership, or offering your gifts to the larger EcoFaith movement, I really hope you'll be in touch with us at the main email address for EcoFaith, which is office@ecofaithrecovery.org. We sure look forward to engaging these practices with you, and we look forward to the positive action that will engage our communities and help us all remember that we are here for a reason, and God is calling us to make a real difference. Thanks so much for this time and for sharing a cup of tea or coffee with me. I do look forward to seeing where all of this takes us together.